So when we record everything, it's very low key, simple. It's a natural conversation. We fix it up in post, and we do want the topics we try to hit is more about you, your story, your history, your goals, long and short term, and basically how like your favorite movie may have left an impression on you to continue going moving forward, and why it's your favorite film, and if it still is to this day. Clearly, it must be. And we do a deep dive. We talk about whatever pops up. It's just whatever happens on the Inside the AFC podcast.
There you go. I'm cool with that. No problem. No problem.
So I guess the best way to start is just saying, introducing you, and I'll just say your name and thank you for joining us, and we'll just take it from there.
Right. Fabulous.
All righty. For the editor listening to this or editing this at home, thank you ahead of time if I don't get to say thank you later. Inside the AFC podcast, one of the early episodes, whichever one comes out first, it's our second recording. And Marker, let's get started. Intro the music, all that good stuff. How you doing, Mr. Bruce?
Hey, Phil. Great to be here. Hey, Bruce Lipsky here from Long Island, a New York City boy. Appreciate the opportunity to be part of the AFC's, inaugural push for podcasts and things. And I look forward to, having a good time over here and imparting my wisdom and my perspective on things, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Yeah.
Glad to have you, man. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Did you have any I know we've spoken a few times before in the past, like you wanted to try to break in as a voiceover actor. You've been doing stand-up comedy for a while, and prior to giving acting a try, you had a totally different career your entire life. You want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
Sure. I actually worked on for Fortune 500 company for 25 years down in the Wall Street area, a major bank, but I was not a banker. My background is more health science, exercise science. So I had one of those very unique jobs where I ran their corporate fitness programs. But I was fortunate enough to be there long enough to grow the position into something very significant, where I was sort of a high-level vice president, and I put the fitness programming on the map in the corporate world. Or at least I helped I did. And, at least I thought it was, going in the right direction. And with all the mergers and acquisitions over the course of time, life changes, priorities changes for the corporations, and they come back and say, hey, you got a $7 million budget. If there's a way we can cut costs, let's cut costs. So one day, it was let's say November of 2005. I was going into New Jersey as part of a corporate, we were doing corporate budgeting, basically. I was inviting all my people in from all over the country because I had 14 sites. So we're all coming in together, going over the budget for 2006. I get to the office in Jersey because they told me to come a little earlier. And sitting in front of me at the desk is the senior vice president of human resources, her assistant, and on the phone, my boss from Chicago, the medical director. And I thought I was getting a diversity award because I got put up for a diversity award and something else, because what happened in one of my facilities, there was a fire. And I actually reacted to the fire in a sauna and helped put it out, in a sense, and risked a few things. And I was fireman of the year, or whatever you want to call it. So I always thought I was fireman Bruce, here I go. So, but looking back, it was kind of stupid. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But, when you think about it, leave the professional stuff to the pros. That's all I have to say. So when I got there and I noticed that they had different faces on. I could talk to them like I'm talking to you. It's friendly and everything because we knew each other so long. I think, where's my diversity award? Coming up on 25 years. Typically in 25 years, you have a choice of getting a grandfather clock, a fancy watch, or a vacation, or whatever it is.
Oh, no.
And then we're sitting down and she says, we're closing down. I said, what do you mean closing down? We closing down a few facilities. We closing down just location here and there. She says, no, we're closing everything down. And I said, where'd this come from? Last night they made the decision. We're shutting everything down. I said, do you have a plan? They said no. But I said, all my people are coming in. They're under the impression that, hey, we're going to have a corporate budget meeting and we're going to plan for next year. She says, call everybody up. This is like 8 o'clock in the morning. People are coming from, from California, Arizona, Texas, Florida. Imagine getting the phone call in Arizona, a guy who worked for me for 20 years, by the way, Joe, you can't come. I can't tell you why. Don't come. At 3 o'clock, there'll be an announcement. I always had an open relationship with my people, and I felt I got stabbed in the back.
Sure.
And they kind of felt they got stabbed in the back by me because, hey, I'm not telling them the truth, but I couldn't. So it was a mess. So instead of getting my clock, I got my clock cleaned.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was like blindsided basically because we fought, or I should say, I helped fight for about 6 or 8 months prior to that. They wanted to outsource all our service, and I went through the whole gamut of that and got, verbally beaten up a lot by senior management, and we won that case. And they weren't going to outsource this, and then all of a sudden this happens where they're just going to basically pull the rug on it. But you got to accept decisions. I didn't like it. I was kind of stunned. So then I figured, at that time, I just turned 50. I had 25 years of service. And it was because I was a high-level VP, there was no room anywhere else for me in the organization. I knew that,
Yeah.
I just was not going to, they're not going to train me and pay me a decent salary. So end of story, I tried negotiating my way out. Because I had been there 25 years, I had a great buyout package, because the severance package was excellent. I got paid for like 70 weeks, no complaints on my part, but they had just changed the package a few months ago. It would have been 2-year severance. Oh, I tried negotiating up for that, didn't work, whatever. So anyway, long story short, imagine the feeling where we're closing down. I said, when are we closing down? We're closing down end of year, December 31st. And this is now November 6th or 5th. And I had to tell all my people, you have to be good soldiers here, because if you don't play the game until the end of the year, you're not going to get your severance. Because you had a lot of angry people, not only at the company, but at me, at the world, whatever. Because everybody thought they had a really good job. In fact, if things was the same, I'd probably still be there. That's how much I really enjoyed my job. Yeah. But anyway, at December 31st, everything got shut down. I negotiated to stay an extra week, month there because a lot of processes had to get shut down. That just you couldn't flip a light switch and everything is done. So imagine being a man without a country for a month. Going into work where all your employees are gone. There's no communication with them because essentially they're cut off. All the computers are cut off, this and that, and now they're watching me. I'm the most honest guy in the world. Well, I don't even know what I could do that would hurt the company anyway. But the idea was that they say, hey, you got to play the next month over here. It's such a lonely existence getting on that train every morning and going in, seeing people that you know were part of your program or your members, and basically saying, hey, Bruce, how's it going? And what are they going to tell me? I've seen it on the other end where people got let go because I've been there long enough. I've been there through the Rockefeller days, the highs and lows of everything, the way when the market crashed, when the market soared. I mean, I've seen a lot of faces go and come in. And it was neat because I was fortunate enough that I got to grow the program from 2 facilities to 14 facilities over a short period of time.
Sure.
Right after 9/11. That's when we really started to ramp up our programming. And because corporate fitness and corporate wellness was very hot, they were building new facilities outside of New York, Dallas, San Antonio, places in Florida, and even in California. They say, well, what do employees want? Employees want health and wellness and fitness and perks. They want on-site childcare. They want all these other programs and all other things. And honestly, some of those programs, maybe they didn't last, but some of the other programs were very, very popular. So anyway, long story short, now I'm a man without a country. What am I going to do? I was just at that age. I didn't really know what I was going to do. Part of me actually wanted to go into like radio. I love 1950s and 1960s music. I grew up with my brother, 2 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 3. The age, the difference, I'm born in 56. My oldest brother was born in 43. My other brother was 47. So there's a big gap. And they were big into the doo-wop, especially. So I didn't become an expert in doo-wop, but I became someone pretty well, experienced and understanding the basics of doo-wop and the music and things like that. And I grew up being a big British Invasion fan in the 60s and other 60s music. So my ideal at that time was to go into radio and have my own Cousin Brucey radio show, and spinning and everything. So I actually considered going to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Okay.
And I thought that'd be pretty cool because ironically, Chase would have paid part of it. They would give you like an allowance. But what happened was in that month's time, I got contacted by somebody who was looking for someone to run a commercial fitness program in the 5 towns in Long Island.
Right.
And they couldn't pay me what I was making here. But if it did pan out with bonuses and whatever profit sharing, I could have made more money.
Sure.
I had no experience in commercial fitness. And I knew commercial fitness because I dealt with it on the equipment side, but not so much on the management side. And so there were 3 things wrong with this facility. It had a bad fire previously, and the facility was ignored. The members were ignored, and the staff was ignored. It was just a bad. You walk into a situation that couldn't have been worse. Here I am supposedly trying to fix this thing. Right. It was a 3-year contract, and it was a long 3 years. Let me put it that way. There was stuff going on there. I don't even know if I can say it on the podcast.
It's all right. I mean, it's their business, and
exactly, it's their business. But it was just, I mean, I didn't sign up for this. Let's put it that way. It was reality because when you work for a corporation, you kind of have Big Brother behind you. You have your resource department, you have this department, that department. I was everything. And, there was fights, there was stealing, there was fire, there was tragedy. I mean, there was a lot of stuff, vindictiveness, everything. Plus you had to run the daily thing with all these different members who have been pissed off because whatever happened in the past. And they looked at you as the savior. So anyway, that was a long 3 years. And I did the 3 years, ended the contract, and about a month or 2 after my contract ended, I was unemployed and still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But I knew I didn't want to do the commercial side, but I still had an inkling. I enjoyed being out there and talking, and I still enjoyed the radio and the music, and I enjoyed comedy. And then I got seriously injured in an automobile accident in March of 2009. I had I think I had talked about this a while ago with you, a really badly fractured spine, and among other things, where it was, touch and go for a while. Is he going to make it type of thing? And if he does, is he going to walk? But I vowed if I stand up, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. And it just kind of popped in my head. And the reason it popped in my head, it was a friend of mine used to run every year a fundraiser for a particular medical ailment. And she used to bring all the top doctors in the country. And it was big time stuff. And she used to hire comedians. And there were a couple of comedians that were okay. I mean, I'm not an expert at the time on comedy. And you laugh a little bit, it's fun, but I saw it didn't match the people that they were playing to. It just didn't make sense. And so I said, this is interesting. I was trying to understand the business. And then one year they had a national headliner there who was also a radio person. And I got fortunate enough to be able to sit next to him at dinner time. And I was able to tap his brains and get into him. We talked for a while. We seemed to, get together pretty well, eye to eye. And he had a great set and people loved him. And so they hired him back for the next year. Next year came, same thing. I sat with him. We talked and everything, but I saw something was different. What was wrong? He got up there and after 20 minutes, walked off the stage, basically, sat down and said, boy, this is a tough crowd. And I knew something was wrong right there. I got pissed off. I got really angry. I said, I felt he mailed it in that day. I really did. Acting, you can tell when somebody's really, really studying the part and going, not just breathing the air. And I felt this guy was just breathing the air on stage, and he took a lot of money for that. And my friend was pissed off, and I was pissed off. And I said, hey, if I ever get the opportunity to get on stage, I'm going to make sure you may not like my comedy. I may not be the funniest guy in the world to you or whatever, but I know I'm going to know my set in and out. I'm prepared. So you can never say that Bruce is mailing it in. And so that was one of the learning lessons that I picked up even before I got into stand-up. And that kind of bridged me into stand-up. I said, I'm going to take a class now. So I went online, and there's several classes you can take. And there was one at actually a meeting in Long Island. It was live, and it was run by three very well-known comedians. It's called Stand Up University. And they had combined, 50 years of experience. And I got up there, and it just seemed to be somewhat natural. I was able to write some jokes and stuff, and I was doing the assignments. Sometimes, people take classes, whether it's acting class and things like that, comedy classes, that there's work. You're not going to just get up in front of the camera and all of a sudden you're going to be this unbelievable person. And, it was tough. It was tough. And it was kind of ironic because what they do is you do 5 weeks of classes, and the classes would last 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is. And you bring your material in, you talk about stage presence or whatever, and you hone your material, work with other people. And then you have what they call a graduation. And the graduation essentially is you getting on stage doing your 5 or 7 minute set in front of your friends and family, plus everybody else's friends and family. And I was blessed that I had 30 something people show up that day for me. And it was magnificent. And I remember getting on stage, and it was like, started my routine, and all of a sudden I froze. I forgot a word. And the word was peanut butter. I couldn't remember the word peanut butter for some reason. It was only like 2 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes. And on an outsider looking in, you wouldn't know it. It was like, I talked about the fact that when my wife goes shopping, I give her a list and she never seems to get it right. I want regular orange juice. She gives me orange juice with pulp. The next one, I want chunky peanut butter. She buys, creamy peanut butter, but I couldn't think of the word peanut butter. I said, holy cow, what's going on over here? But I got through that and made it through the night and got the applause. Part of it was, some of the applause was probably because they were my friends, and it was, hey, it's great to see you on stage. But exactly. But the biggest thing I got out of it, and I have an older brother who passed away 4 years ago. He was sort of the guy I always looked up to. He used to call me Kid. And yeah, he was a pretty well-known physician in infectious disease out in Long Island in New York City. And he came up to me afterwards, and he's never one to speak any words. He's very into, like, emotionally, he holds everything back. And he came up to me and says, I've never been more proud of you in my life. I mean, and I watched you up there. This is something I always want. He had the best sense, dry sense of humor. We can go at it. It was hysterical sometimes. He had that almost a sarcastic sense of humor. And we used to go back and forth. And he said, I always wanted to get on stage and do this. I didn't have the nerve to do it. And here's a guy who as an MD, he taught at the college level. He taught medicine. He was #1 in his medical school, blah, blah, blah. And here's a guy who didn't have the nerve to get up in front of people and do comedy. But he looked at me and said, Bruce, I've never been so proud of you, and that was such a validation to me. And, and I just kept up with it. That was like 2017. Okay. But for that year afterwards, a year and a half afterwards, we had some family issues that I didn't get on stage very often. Okay. So I don't have to get too much into that. It turns out that my wife and I became executors to wills and trusts and things like that. Not only once, but twice. And there was a lot of mess. So anyway, getting on stage was not a priority. Also, and you're probably aware of this, when you're new to comedy, how do you get stage time? The way you get stage time is you got to basically bring people. Let's face it, you're a new musician, you have a band. How do you get to a club? You got to bring people, because how the bars want to make money. You got to put rear ends in seats. I totally understand that. So in the beginning, I was able to bring people, but after a while, let's face it, you got a crappy show. My wife would say to me, I can't do this anymore. I'm hearing the same crappy comedy. She's growing, and but one of the things for me, though, validation in comedy, I love Rodney Dangerfield, and that's one line of style.
Oh, sure. That guy, I heard about him through, I don't know, like which movies in particular I watched growing up, but I remember Rodney had like a small role in Casper the Friendly Ghost, and I was like maybe like 7 or 8 years old at the time, and I knew his face from somewhere, and I saw him like be a soccer coach a couple times, and that's how I got to know Rodney Dangerfield. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing him all the time. I think he was in Caddyshack. Maybe? Right. Like, and
Exactly.
growing up, I started watching more and more movies, and I'm seeing Rodney Dangerfield, not even knowing comedy was its own thing, and let alone that my dad once upon a time was also my age. I didn't never used to think that way, but during, like, I guess the 70s and 80s, he was really, a rising star.
Exactly. That's a great point. In fact, I used to go see him at Dangerfield's
The comedy club in
Comedy
Manhattan.
Club on 61st Street and First Avenue. Yeah,
Right.
I used to go there. And once I became a comedian, if you want to call it that, my real validation, I wanted a bucket list was to play on Dangerfield stage.
Oh man.
So what happened was, again, the way you get on that stage, they were running bringer shows on Saturdays at 5:30. A very well-known comedian who actually is a big Trump impersonator, and he was running these shows there. And I had friends that said, "Sure, I'll come and see you." It was 5:30 on a Saturday. The show would last 2 hours or whatever it is, and then we'd go to dinner afterwards. But that first night I got on Dangerfield stage, again, my take on, because I was older, in this deal. I'm 67 years old now. So actually, at the end of the month, I'll be 67.
Mhm.
I wasn't one of these young kids trying to get into comedy to break in 20, 25, 30 years old. I was doing it for other reasons. And if it took off in the right direction, that'd be fabulous. If it didn't, and I know my own lane, that's okay too. But to get on that stage and in front of my friends and family, that was like, hey, I'm a comedian now. But if you really analyze all this stuff, and you probably know better than me being in this industry of filmmaking, it's when you look behind the scenes, it's not as fancy schmancy as you think it is. This is like a 6x10 stage or whatever it is. There's a
Oh
piano
yeah.
there and a crooked sign that says Dangerfield, sticky floors, old paneling, you know, tired
Maybe a grind.
decorations. But I've arrived. I've made it. So,
Yeah,
and
you were there. You're
I
standing
was
on the
there.
stage.
Exactly. I was on stage and I did several shows there, but it was also neat because I used to dress differently. I used to have dressed with a nice sport coat, a white shirt. My wife got me these novelty ties. I'd wear them and I stuck out a little bit. Besides the fact, let's face it, I just have a unique look in a lot of ways. James Cromwell look, whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah,
Tall,
yeah.
thin, bald, large nose, whatever you want to call it. I just had a different stage presence. And first time I did Dangerfields, a guy came up to me, a seasoned comedian, headlining comedian in the city, and after I did my set, he said, I really like you. I like your look. I like your style. I like your whatever my demeanor, whatever it was. It's something about you I really like. And we sat down for like 10 minutes and we talked and everything else like that. He went out there and was killing the crowd, and he said, I like to help people. I like to help young comedians. And obviously, I'm 15 years older than this guy, but anyway, I like to help people. Here's my card. And somebody gives you a card. I'm never going to call this guy. To hell with that. And if I do call him, I'll say, who is this? And so I said, I'm a type person. You give me the opportunity, I'll run with it. I'll try and do my best.
Sure.
So I called him up a couple of weeks later, and I said, so and so. Remember, oh, Bruce, how you doing? And I said, can I take you to lunch? He lived in Manhattan. And I said, I'll even pay you for a session just to sit and hang out and just talk about comedy and stuff like that. And so he said, sure, let's go to lunch. And so we went to lunch at the TikTok Diner in Manhattan, right by Penn Station. It was in
I
one
don't
of
know
the
if I've been there, TikTok.
It's in, I think, the hotel right across. I don't remember the hotel. So anyway, I'd never been there either. He said, let's go there. And we sat down, we started talking and talking. It's just like we're talking right now. We just seemed to mesh.
Sure.
Everything just seemed to hit. It was not just comedy we're talking about. We're talking about life and just general. And it was just a nice feeling. And so his girlfriend kept on calling. He said, so where are you? I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. He said, I'll be there. I said, why don't you invite her in? Let's all three sit together.
Okay.
I said, you wouldn't mind that? He said, no. So and I sat another 2.5 hours together. And
Oh my God.
we became sort of friendly in a way because we had some things in common.
Sure.
And we still in touch with each other. I've never performed. I performed on stage with him, but I've never performed with him at my level that I'm at now. But I have performed with him. In fact, one of my worst experiences as a comedian It was when I used to do the Dangerfields. And if you've done enough Dangerfields, you brought people, sometimes they'd throw you a bone and they'd put you on as a guest spot somewhere, an extra
Hmm.
spot where we didn't have to worry about bringing people. So I got that bone, and the guy said, "Okay, I want you to come Friday night to the Dangerfields." Got there around 10 o'clock at night. I was so excited. I drove in from Long Island and no traffic. I parked right in front of Dangerfield. I got probably there 8:45. But I didn't want to take a chance getting late. This is going to be my time. So I
Right.
get there, and I knew I was early. I said, "Let me watch the show. I want to see how these real comedians are doing, you know?" And so I sat and watched, and I analyzed some of the stuff. And then I went up to the MC and I said, "Hey, I'm so and so. Bob told me to come down here." He said, "What are you doing here so early? You're on the Late Show. And Late Show doesn't start till 10:30. You're not going to get on probably till after midnight."
Right.
I said, "Oh, shoot. And I got to spend another 2 hours, another show, waiting this and that." But it turns out that the headliner of the second show was the guy who sort of mentored me that day. I
Okay.
met with for lunch. So I thought, this is great. So he was there, but he didn't get there till later on. It turns out that, yeah, he was the closing. He was the headliner. And guess who was the closing act?
Well, it wasn't Rodney Dangerfield. Oh,
No,
you.
it was Bruce Rodney Lipsky over here. So
That
imagine
cleanup. All right.
that. Oh, boy, I'm telling you, this is at 12:20 at night. I got on.
Oh, yeah. All right. So,
All right, this is part of the dues. It's part of the
yeah.
dues. I understood that. I'm a good soldier. I don't mind that. But the MC was miserable. He was totally miserable throughout the whole thing. Because when I got there, I just started talking to the MC. He asked me, "Oh, why are you getting into comedy?" Listen, that. I said, "I want to have a good time. I want to learn to." "Oh, that's the problem, you people. You want to have a good time. You don't take it seriously." I said, "If you don't have,"
What
he was so miserable, this guy. I said, "If you don't have a good time doing, why the hell are you doing it?" He said, "I'm doing
facts?
this." He said, "I'm here 25 years, doing this 25 years, whatever." And I look at me on a Friday night, my family, I'm emceeing in front of 30 people, whatever. And so this guy did his set for like 25 minutes. People were hysterical laughing. Maybe there were 20 people in the room at that point. And now he finishes his set, and it's now my turn to come up. And the MC gets up there and says, "Okay, coming to the stage now is Brian Lipsky." And so the guy says, "Wait a second, it's Bruce." Oh, I couldn't
Yeah.
get the name right. And at
It's
that time, everybody wanted to pay
Spider-Man
their
moment.
checks.
You
And
got
there
my
was
name
like six,
wrong.
and there was 6 people left in the audience by the time I got there. 4 were probably drunk, the other 2 were probably sleeping.
Oh,
And here we're
man.
going to talk about my mother-in-law. Yeah. "Hey, how you doing, folks?" And it was boom. But that's all part of the deal, the dudes. So
Welcome to Happy Corner. This project strives to make safe housing areas for stray cats at an affordable price. It's so easy to put together that even your children could have fun making one. Help keep cats and other animals safe with their own little Happy Corner homes. You can help this project become a reality by donating to the GoFundMe page. Happy Corner homes are a great way to show those animals in need it's okay to be happy.
You got to
um,
get your repetitions in.
oh yeah, got to do it. And I stuck through it and was like, you know, his misery kind of paved the way a little bit too, to make it a little more difficult because he didn't seem to care so much. He wanted to get out of there as well. But you deal with that. I mean, there are times where you're at top of your game when even my wife will say, "Bruce, I never heard you so good." And another time she said, "Bruce, you seem nervous tonight. You're okay?" And there's no rhyme or reason. And I've been on stage with some very seasoned comedians, and I've been with the people at my level, and I feel like I can hold my own. I do a lot of writing. My style, as I said before, is one-liner comedian, like a Rodney Dangerfield, the old-time Borchbell comedians. I like the quick stuff. I even do some wordsmithing, as I call it. Some people call it word play. I like to twist words around. Everybody's got their style, and but I've got some good, I've got some good advice in the field. I've worked with some really good people, and my attitude is, hey, I'm there if you need me. I've done private gigs, I've done restaurants, I've done some big events as well, and I've done some small things. And a lot of times I've done stuff gratis, which is fine to help my career. And so, fast forwarding a little bit, because of with the COVID and everything, with COVID, that changed the life of everybody. And so, especially in comedy, because now we couldn't go to any live shows. If we could go to a live show, nobody's coming out to watch you. So Zoom became very popular. And I called myself a Zoomologist. I try to get on every Zoom mic and every Zoom show internationally through the United States and everything. So people got to know me really well.
Sure.
I say, this guy is willing to come on. He's willing to do it. And they were willing to give me more time. It was unheard of back then if you got more than 5 minutes on a Zoom set. I found people were willing to give 10, 15, 20-minute sets to me.
Sure.
Not because I'm so wonderful and delicious, but I was willing to do it and put the work in and come back. If you said, okay, Bruce, I booked you for a 20-minute set Wednesday night at 10 o'clock at night, EST, they know I was going to show up.
Sure.
Because too many times I'd find people wouldn't show up.
Wow.
And they said, that's ridiculous. I'm sure, stuff happens. I totally understand stuff happens. But when it's consistently happening like that, there's a problem. But I got to know so many people from the UK, from Israel, from down under in New Zealand, and all over the world, and it was really good because we're all in the same boat over here. And if somebody knew somebody else from the UK and said, okay, Bruce, I got a show going on. How would you like to do this? I've done charity events online with the Zoom and everything. So it's been great. I'll continue to do those. In fact, what I did on my website, I used to post everything that I've done, but I used to post stuff. And some of the posters I'd even make for the venues as sort of giving back. I've done a lot of that. In fact, I got on a lot of shows, paid shows. Okay. I volunteered to do some of these things. Like say, how about a barter thing? I'll do the poster, give me 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. They said you do that because when you do posters and things like that, it's not cheap. Anytime you do an edit or something like that, they want to bang you for some money because that's their business.
Sure.
I'm willing, and still, I told you this as well, and to anybody I can help out, I'm happy to do because I always feel you give a little, you get back. And if you don't, if I don't get it, and if I don't get back, my wife used to say, Bruce, you got schmuck written on your forehead because sometimes you're too nice, you give too much. But if you don't feel it, what's the difference? If I don't feel it, I'm being taken advantage of. I'm not being taken advantage of. So that I got to grow a lot with comedy through Zoom, and I met a lot of people who are industry veterans, and some like me, and some they'll say, Bruce, let's talk offline. I really think I can help you out with this, And so we used to do that. And then they called me back and said, Bruce, I had one guy calling back and say, how would you like to open for me in Texas?
Really?
Yeah. He said,
why not?
I said, absolutely. He said, would they pay my way? He said, oh, that's the problem. They won't. And I said, next. He said, well, I can't exactly get you down there. And I said, if they would have paid my way, yeah. But that'll happen. In fact, I have a lot of friends now I've made in the UK. I said, if you ever get to the UK, we'll get you on stage. But we'll
Maybe
see.
we can help with that. I wasn't sure how to go about special people, the whole campaign on, comedies up and coming. If there was a way we could crowdfund through their comedy skits audibly to collectively help contribute some sort of I don't know, for food or gas just to get them to wherever they want to go, we're actually supporting them. I'd be 100% for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's and it's just at my level especially, you're not going to make a full-time living on comedy. It's hard enough for the seasoned comedians to be out there regularly making money, and I give them a lot of credit, a lot of hardworking people, and I have so much respect for them. But for me, if I get on a show, I did a show a few weeks ago, and I got one of the highest amounts of money I ever got for a show. And sometimes you get on stage and say, these people are really coming to see me.
Right.
It's amazing because I taught at the college level for a while in the master's programs at Queens College, Delphi, and NYU. And I remember the first time I got in front of the students there, because I had a lot of everyday experience. I had real world experience and things that I used to do. And in fact, I hired a lot of my students to work for me full time.
Oh, good. Wow. Okay.
So it was a great opportunity for the school. They got somebody who's real in the field, who's willing to teach people what the real world is like, and he's willing to give jobs.
Sure.
I mean, what better deal is that? So I remember the first day I got in front of the classroom, and there's 30 students there, and whatever the topic I was talking about, and I said, these people are actually paying to come to listen to me. I can't
Sure.
believe this, because I had some self-doubt, let's face it. But then again, after that first lecture, I said, shit, these people respected me, looked up to me, and they called me, and I was available to them. It's not Mr. Lipsky, it's Bruce. I tried to make them comfortable. Again, I had a bad experience in graduate school. Almost the same experience I had with this comedy thing, when I told you about before, where I had a teacher who mailed it in. He came, in fact, one day he came to class and he stopped the class after 10 minutes and said, I'm not prepared for the lecture. Everybody go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, WTF, what's going on over here? I'm paying, tuition on this stuff. And again, I said the same thing. If I get the opportunity, the school's willing to hire me, I'm coming back and teaching this class. And I taught that class for several years. I had to stop teaching because I was traveling too much on my job and I couldn't get the credit. And the ironic thing is, when I worked at Chase, they were willing to pay for my PhD. I said, I don't need a PhD. I have my master's, but you'll pay for the PhD, because it's good education and everything. And when I lost my job at Chase, what happened? They basically said, when college came back to me and said, hey, Bruce, we'd love to consider hiring you. Are you working on your PhD or EDD, or do you have it? And I said, no. And
man, so you couldn't even be like sort of like independent?
I couldn't be. They had a full-time opportunity. I could have at least interviewed for.
But it could have been a workshop then, like not even a accredited course. It could have just been the workshop.
Yeah, but again, at that point, it was just there were so many things going on. And then I got hurt in the auto accident, as I mentioned to you before. All that time, everything had to mold together. When I had the bad spinal injury, as I mentioned, I spent 3 years of aggressive therapy. And in fact, every day is therapy as far as I'm concerned with exercise. Exercise is probably one of the most important things in my life. And I think it's very important, as far as talking about life balance. It's great to be in filmmaking. It's great to be in comedy. It's great to be in this and that, but there's got to be the balance there. There's got to be, you got to have fun too. You got to take care of your health as well. I know you like to exercise because I heard you say that. It's important.
Yeah.
Not that you're doing it 10 hours a day, but it's an important part of your day.
I've had days where I would be there for 3 hours, like really focusing, but when I was there for like hours on end, I wasn't like lifting. I was doing more like flexibility, like stretching, like really being extremely patient, and take care of my lower back. And that was the most work, was trying to keep flexibility.
Sure. I was always been a thin guy, but it was a time in my life where I actually got into much more structured lifting. And I had one of those D things there and up here, and then, the priorities changed, man. Let me tell you, it's hard maintaining it. I'm just happy maintaining a healthy lifestyle. You don't have to be perfect, but the idea is you want to be consistent. And that's, I think, in anything. I think all our fans out there, right attitude, gratitude, platitude, and whatever else or other any tude you can think of, But I think it's important, again, to have passions in different things, Obviously, movies are one of the things that I enjoy. The type of movies I like to enjoy they're not necessarily the highest level movie that people will look at. I like film noir. I like the monster movies from the 50s, the old one, like them.
Like Bela Lugosi, all those guys.
I go back from the horror movies from the Frankensteins, the Mummy, all
Boris
those, Dracula, all the Boris Karloff movies, all those things. I love those. Then you bring it up. I like detective movies, the Cagneys and the Robinson. I like going through the serials, like the old Superman stuff, the old Batman serials. Then we go right into the 50s again, or 40s and 50s, which is film noir, the detective stuff again, the murder mysteries, and some good movies with the twists. And then, as I said, the 50s movies like The Blob and Them and the Giant Scorpion and all those crazy movies. You think about it. In fact, I like watching Svengoolie. Have you heard Svengoolie?
I can't think of his face.
Yes.
I'm literally trying to get Double Indemnity out of my head, but it's just like
great movie, Double Indemnity. Yeah, but Svengoolie is this guy, Rich Kaz, and he dresses up like a Dracula type character, and he plays these movies like typically horror movies from the 50s early or whatever. And what he does, he gives comments on the movies immediately, but he also gives insight into the movies.
Okay.
like the stars and everything. Oh, look at this. For example, they had Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man on.
Oh, that was
Right?
great. And what was that? Vincent Price?
No, it wasn't Vincent Price. But that he played Vincent Price's voice was on Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. At the end, he played the Invisible Man in
Of
the,
Hold That
rowboat.
Ghost?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he played
that
the
was Hold That
rowboat thing.
Ghost.
But anyway, so in this movie, Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man. Um, he broke down everything about just how the movie was made and how think about in the I thought it was 1940s maybe.
Sure.
They
1937, I think they really were like,
not
the
exactly sure, but Invisible Man, Claude Range was probably earlier than that in the 30s, I thought. I don't even know. But the technology back then and how to make somebody's hand disappear or face disappear and unwrap and everything. And they were going over that. It was really cutting edge, if you think about it. I mean, you can go back and look at some of those 1950 movies where there's such low budget, the Roger Corman movies, where, this one movie was called, I think it was called I, Robot. And it was filmed, I think, in Pittsburgh. And you can see when they have a scene that shoots the back of the monster,
yeah.
seam on the back of his costume is open and stuff. You see his like Levi jeans or something. It's so bad it's good. It's so bad it's good. And I
think
love
they
those
did that,
movies.
like, there was the first 3D film. I forget the name of it. I want to say it was The Creature from the Black Lagoon or something like
Wax
that.
Museum, Vincent Price.
The first 3D film?
Yeah. And
Was it? Because I remember it was about the creature in the water and carrying the lady in. I could have sworn that was the first.
It wasn't filmed in
3D.
3D. You didn't need the glasses for that. The film 3D was Vincent Price, Wax Museum, and interesting thing with that, it was also had the first 3D short, and the first 3D short there was the Three Stooges.
Oh, okay. Well,
And the Three Stooges were they were in a haunted house. They were detectives, and what they were doing, they showed where they would Mo would go poke like Curly's eyes, and you see the fingers coming at you.
Yeah.
Or they throw an axe, and the axe would come at you. But the thing is, they had these bats on strings, and you can see the strings, and the bat would fly towards you going back. It was really clever. I actually saw those two together in the Village Emporium. I think back in the 1970s or early 80s. I went with a friend of mine back then. It's so corny, but it's so much, for me, it's a lot of fun. But as I digress a lot, I'm sorry. But
this is great.
Yeah.
No, don't worry.
Yeah. But again, going back to the movies, once you got towards the 60s and stuff, I like some of the Western movies. I like old Westerns too. But the newer movies, I never really got into as much. I don't know. I got a little bit into Alfred Hitchcock, some of the classic stuff.
Sure.
And the reason I got into some of that, when I was in college, I took a class on movies. Because history of movies, something like that. We started from Potemkin, the Russian movie, the silent movie. I don't know if you ever heard of that. That was the boat, Potemkin.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. It was like a battleship.
Yeah, exactly. And it talked about life on the ship, and it worked its way up. I remember we saw M with Peter Lorre, classic movie.
I don't know
where he played a psychotic guy. And what the teacher would do is they'd analyze scenes. And again, I don't know the number. It would talk about how shooting the camera upward and having the guy falling down from whatever. He was talking about angles. They were fabulous. I learned so much. And they just had picked out certain things. Strangers on a Train was one of them that we were watching. Okay. North by Northwest was one we really took apart.
Yeah, with Cary Grant.
We took apart. Let's see. What was the big one we took apart? Rosebud. Citizen Kane. Yeah, that one we took apart. But it gave me a definite perspective on movies and things, and where I got to appreciate, because it's, again, the stuff I like is not necessarily those movies, but I understood cinematically what was going on a little bit more. And really, as
far as technique, you kind of were able to pick up on certain things.
Absolutely. Just on angles and symbols, especially with Alfred Hitchcock and symbols. A lot of the symbols, for example, I don't remember the characters' names. They're meeting on a train, and and all of a sudden they get to know each other romantically, and the lights go out, and the train is going through a tunnel, and that's a symbolization that they're having sex. You know,
Oh, all right. Yeah, okay, I get it. No, I follow. Yeah.
yeah. So those are the little symbols like that. And also with Alfred Hitchcock, I like the neat thing that he always appeared in his movies, some sort of character.
Somewhere in there, yeah, like he would be
Yeah,
in a newspaper reel or something like
right.
that.
When the
Yeah.
birds, for example, the birds, I think he was carrying a cage with birds or something. Yeah, but it was funny. But yes, again, the techniques and things like that. That movie used to scare the crap out of me. Psycho.
Yeah, I did. I never watched Psycho. I was always too scared. But
Oh yeah. Oh
The
yeah.
Birds, I remember watching it when I was a kid, and I was able to get through it. And a lot of like Turner Classic Movies were going through like not horror, but showing like the thrilling side. And I grew up watching Turner Classic Movies.
Okay.
That one was just like, I remember as a kid, hard to sit through, even as a kid, because I see all the other kids getting attacked by birds, and I got to go like 3 houses down for the bus stop every morning, and I'm always looking up.
That's
I got
funny.
one of my cats have to escort me to the bus stop. Shout out to Fuzzy. I haven't.
That's funny because
her
now even like in my neighborhood, they have these blackbirds that sometimes migrate. And you're talking
Those-
1,000,
No, they're upstate in my backyard. I grew up
1,000 in your backyard. The
and
freakiest thing.
nothing. That's all you hear. Like around August, September, they're right there, right before the change of season. Sometimes October, by the thousands, and the entire backyard, every single tree that we have, filled with a bird.
And you're afraid to go out thinking the birds are coming. Almost, it's really freaky, But
I'm just glad they didn't find our bird feeder so close to the deck. Like I have cats, and they are master hunters. I could write a book on these guys on how well they hunt.
Right.
But sometimes they would just kind of look up and just hang out and wait, and like, it's 1,000. I know I could take one, maybe
exactly.
two.
Strength in numbers over here. I know. I had a cat for 23 years. I know. So yeah.
Mine passed away at 22 this year.
Okay, there you go. I had one that lived like 7 or 8 years old after that. But anyway, yeah. So, but again, I got a sort of an appreciation with Hitchcock a little bit, but I still like my goofier movies. I like the Marx Brothers, also some comedy stuff.
Of course, Ollie and Stanley.
Exactly.
The true kings of comedy, the founders of comedy.
Exactly. Even like growing up, and TV wise, I used to watch a lot of the sitcom type things. But it's funny, I never got into Cheers or Friends and those things like that. I was more like, I like the 1960s stuff. I like the Addams Family, like the Munsters. I loved F Troop, was one of my favorite shows.
I don't watch those, the original ones. Not yet. I'm sure once we have a clubhouse, I'll be hanging out at the clubhouse all the time, watching movies from God knows when. Shout out to anybody who has a space where we could actually build.
One of the neatest, I think one of the most clever, personally, one of the most clever television shows ever made. Funny.
Little Rascals.
That's I'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah. As far as TV show, Little Rascals is more shorts and movies. Leave It to Beaver. I don't know if you ever watched Leave It to Beaver.
Not the old one. I remember watching the movie version when it came out.
No. Yeah. But if you ever get a chance to watch the first season or two, they're all great, but they're so well, in my opinion, so well written, so funny, so much humor behind of actually what's going on, like so clever. That's one of the best. I think one of the best.
Well, I think honestly, the best way to showcase how well a writer is through the television platform, and with a good help of a good producer. If not, the writer is the producer. That's a great place to really workshop your skills.
How to be consistent every week too. How many episodes you have to write. But you mentioned the Little Rascals. I mean, if you think about how young these kids.
They were not even 10 years old.
Spanky. There's a very controversial episode. You probably know it. They talk about Uncle from Borneo. They don't really put it on anymore because Uncle from Borneo basically is Spanky and his family was expecting their uncle, I think it's Uncle George. Okay. And it turns out that a circus act a man from Borneo escapes. It's a man of color with a bone in his nose. So right away there was controversy over the fact that it's, you know, racial and things like that. Not back then, because you know what went on back then in movies and things like that. I'm not supporting that. I'm just saying this is what went on. But thing is, this uncle from Borneo, Spanky never met him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the guy escaped from the circus, whatever act, and he wound up getting into the house of where Spanky is, and Spanky thought that was his uncle.
Okay.
And just how Spanky interacts with this guy and how he talks with him, and I mean, I can watch that 100 times a day and laugh and just see, not laughing at the character of Uncle George, but laughing at how Spanky reacts to him, you know, and just saying, like, you know, because every sentence that Uncle George would say, yum yum, eat 'em up, yum yum, eat 'em up. That was the only thing he could say. And so Spanky would try to have a conversation with him, where Spanky, he put Spanky up here, and Spanky's looking down and says, Uncle George, don't eat me. I don't taste so good. I don't taste so good, Uncle George. You know, and just the way how he learned his lines. I can't believe it. You know,
He was probably not even, was he what, like not even 5 years old during that
probably
time?
not. Probably not.
No, these kids, like, they started out as babies, these kids.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, you know?
But even still, I mean, you still have to have it somewhere. I mean, you know, I don't know.
They exist. Honestly, they're probably in an archive, in a library. Honestly, you could probably find it on TikTok, because there's little to no censorship on that. You know, that's a perk to TikTok, other than the not so good parts of TikTok.
You can put it up bring it up right now. It's probably on YouTube somewhere, this thing too. I'm sure it is.
It's possible. It's just that's the one thing I have a problem with when we use databases, is when you put policy a little bit too tight to kind of like mesh with it. It shouldn't really be anybody's business but the person presenting it. And I don't want to get into it really, but like these are things that are archived, about, like, that regardless of opinion or what they were about. It shows really as a culture and a historical document, which archaeologists might find interesting 1,000 years from now. And it wouldn't be right to interfere with their current state.
Of course. Look at the first talkie, the jazz singer, Al Jolson. I believe that was the first talkie, wasn't it? The jazz singer.
I can't remember. Like, I know when the talkies first came out, and
I think it was the jazz singer, Al Jolson.
I can't remember. It's like it's been a minute.
But you know Al Jolson is, right? Al Jolson was the white actor, Jewish guy playing the blackface. Yeah.
I remember like some of the workmanship in the name, but it's been after like 14 years. I don't know. I feel like I got like I don't have a cloud drive from my memories, where it's like I'm on 4 terabytes of
jazz singer, 1927, first talking. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. That's a fun fact, because the movie we're working on, Son of Houdini, is actually set in 1926. So this is probably right before the recording of anything. So fun fact, good stuff to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is really impressive, Bruce. We've been talking for almost an hour.
We're just getting started, man.
I know. We're gonna have to have you come back for a part B with Lipsky.
With Lipsky, yeah, because you had mentioned it, asked me what my favorite movie was or is.
Yeah, when you come back, we're going to have to really actually talk about The Wizard of Oz. So for those of you actually listening, please join us again for the next edition of Inside the AFC podcast with Bruce Lipsky. We're going to have a part 1 and a part 2. And sometimes these conversations, they're very authentic. We never know what is really going to come our way. We have an idea that we want to talk about a movie. And honestly, Bruce, I'm really glad you came on the show, because like you've had one tremendous story, like with your back, your career, and just some of the luck you've been having to just keep going and get into stand-up comedy. Definitely want to share your story again and have you come back on the show.
Love it. I'll come back and again and again. I enjoy, not only talking, but also, not only sharing information, but learning from other people as well, and one of the things that impressed me about the Astoria Filmmakers Club was that it gave me and was giving me an opportunity to put me in a lane that I normally would not sort of be allowed to get into, because what do they know about Bruce Lipsky? And you're willing to take somebody like me with, level 0 experience and share, what you have to offer, which I think is fantastic. So I do appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, what are some of the projects you're working on in the Story Filmmakers Club?
Yeah. Well, I know you have right now. You're talking about the, Son of Houdini. That looks exciting, and I'll be playing one of the Jewish neighbors, I guess it is there, which is exciting. I know Fireland. I'm looking forward to that one as well. That's really exciting. Because ironically, if we have time still while we're recording,
yeah, we got a minute. I know one of our next guests.
I'll sum it up. I'll sum it up very quickly. Is that back in the day, in like the late 70s, 1980 maybe, I used to walk my dog. I used to live in Whitestone, Queens, and when I walked my dog, a gentleman there was a captain in the fire department.
Okay.
And he said, we're always looking for new people on the force, on the force, whatever it's called, And so he said, why don't you take the test? So I took the test. I took the written test. I did really well. And I got called to take the physical part of the fire department test. About a week and a half beforehand, I was still a student at Queens College. I was playing basketball at Queens College. I was on defense. A guy came across the court, hit his face on my nose, and put my nose on the other side of my face, basically.
So you basically got put on the disabled list, and
basically what happened was I was like out of it, and I didn't realize you could postpone the physical.
And instead you just said, sorry, I can't do it.
The man never showed up. I didn't have to, and it happened was a couple of weeks later that I saw the guy while walking the dog. He said, how's it going, Bruce? How's it going? When you do your physical stuff? I said, I got a slight problem. I broke my nose and I never really contacted him. He said, oh my God, I wish I know. I would have contacted him for you. I'd have let him make it up another time. So going to Fireland, you're talking about that. At one point, I could have been a fireman. I don't know,
Maybe, I definitely could have been a firefighter. The opportunity came in 2012, but I was more interested in film, television, acting, and
it worked out.
That's another story for another time.
Another time, another show. But,
So all right, we'll schedule. You could come back sometime for part 2 of Inside the Actor Studio with Bruce Lipsky.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure.
Not the Actor Studio. I can't believe I said that. No, inside the Astoria Filmmakers Club. We'll fix it.
And it's funny you say the Actor Studio. Wasn't that on channel like 13 or PBS?
I love that show before Bruce.
I have a friend. I guess another story I have for you. Maybe I should save it for next time. Just remind me.
We gotta save it because
I have an Actor Studio story for you.
Coming to you on the next episode, guys. Be sure to tune in.
Part 2 or 3, whatever it may be.
Whatever it may be. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Ciao.
Thanks, folks. Take care.